And we're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome again to our live AMA and our European football show. It was supposed to be me, Tiago, and Nico today, and unfortunately, Nico cannot make it. So you'll have to deal with the two of us. Um, we've got lots of things to get through. There's been 4 European fixtures in the Champions League this week. There's been many Europa League fixtures as well, and we also would love to have questions from you. If you want to ask us questions, you can either tweet at us on Twitter or you can use the live chat function, which is on the side of this um, of the YouTube channel. So just pop your questions in there and we'll get through to them. Before that, though, I think we'll make our way through the European games in particular. Firstly, I should say, how are you, Tiago? Are you okay?
People are already questioning what I ate, so then that's not a good start. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm still without showing my face apparently. Not that I have anything to hide, but my laptop isn't letting me work with both my camera and my mic at the same time. So we're going with just my voice for now, even though it's arguably worse than my face.
Well, I think it's wonderful, and we surely are all looking forward to the day when we actually get to see you live in action in your Portuguese habitat. Um, let's go to the European games first and go through them as much as we can. Liverpool Bayern on Tuesday. Did you manage to see any of that game?
Yeah, I was more focused on the Wednesday fixtures than I was in the Tuesday fixtures for the Champions League. But from what I've seen, I've taken a bit of a gander at the numbers, and what I've seen, it seemed a bit of a Liverpool-sided match. But I'm sure you watched it. I'm sure you have takes for me.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think there was a huge discrepancy in the XG in the game. Liverpool were, by most accounts, over about two, just over about two, and Bayern were were under zero point 0.3 in a lot of them. So they didn't create a huge amount of chances. But at the same time, I suppose away from home, Liverpool, who've proven to be a dominant side in the Champions League of late, I suppose that was the sensible way of going about it, especially because Bayern have been as well known as struggling in the Bundesliga this season. I thought it was an exciting Bayern team potentially. They had some players who I love to watch. They had Serge Gnabry playing out right on in the midfield three or the front. I guess the three in a 4-2-3-1. And they had James Rodriguez. James Rodriguez actually kept quite quiet, I thought, through the game, as was Lewandowski. But again, he wasn't getting a huge amount of service because Bayern weren't doing a huge amount to get forward, obviously. Other than that, I thought, yeah, Liverpool created chances. They looked dangerous. Jordan Henderson had a surprisingly good game. Naby Keita looked like the sort of player that people had expected him to be immediately at Liverpool, which was nice. And Jorginho Wijnaldum continues to be the sort of quietly brilliant player that he is. But yeah, for me, not a lot to say other than Liverpool probably did enough to go to Munich with a lead, but they just didn't manage to pull it off. If you got anything you wanted to say from
I
that?
was gonna question something about that game, which is you mentioned Nabry as a player you like at Bayern. I was gonna ask what did Tiago do, or how did Tiago do in this case?
Yeah, yeah,
Because he played in the two with Javi Martinez, right?
yeah. And look, the two of them did sit very deep. A lot of people were saying, this is a good defensive display from Bayern, but they had a back four. Alaba didn't get forward really at all. Kimmich didn't really get forward either. And then they had those two players sitting in front of them, so it was very, very solid. And obviously that translated into not a huge amount of chances from Bayern. I thought Thiago was fine. Um, I thought Martinez was fine, but again, they were so defensive and so well structured in the sense that they didn't really push out of that four and then two that I think most players would have looked fine in that defensive setup. Um, but I guess Bayern turned up wanting the draw, and they got the draw, and they'll take that back to Munich, and they'll be a little bit more intrepid. You'd have thought in the game there. Um, the other game that night was Barcelona Lyon. Again, ending 0-0. causing everyone to complain about the.
It was a really good day for me to miss the games, to be
Yeah,
honest,
yeah,
because
it was.
the following day was a lot better.
Yeah, and I didn't manage to watch the highlights of the Barca Lyon game, but I think a similar sort of thing. You know, the uh, incapacity of teams really wanting to go forward in the first leg of a knockout, 2 leg knockout, where away goals count. And I always think these first rounds of 16 games are always a little bit tetchy. So
Yeah, it's only natural. I think again, I also wasn't particularly focused on this game, but just looking at the numbers, very dominant performance from Barca as expected. Lyon held on to the 0-0, but a really good game from Ndombele again. Well, and in an important stage for him to keep performing as he has been, and he had a really eye catching performance, especially if you're considering that his team didn't really have much of the ball at all,
mm,
and he was solid, and Awar as well. So basically, the young Leon midfielders had good games, especially like progressing the ball and all that. So
yeah.
they probably won't last in France for that much longer. But if we move on to the following day, we can have a little bit better commentary, having in account we actually watched the games. At least I did. I don't know
Yeah.
about you.
No, I watched them. Yeah. Which one would you like to talk about first?
I think I'd like to talk about City first, even though I was kind of assuming this would be Nico's uh, time to shine per
Well, Nico
se.
didn't actually watch the game. He was watching the Atletico Juve game because he was on Ringer FC today, and they were talking about that game. So
Yeah, but I'm sure he rewatched City today already,
yeah,
or if he didn't, he's going to eventually whenever he can. And yeah, I thought it was interesting that Nico, since we're talking about him for some reason, we're talking about him and he's not here. Uh, but he commented on Twitter that like people were saying that the match was somewhat worrying when it comes to the City side, and Nico was saying that they barely conceded any chances or they didn't concede any shot on target or something like that. And like, so how worrying could it be defensively? How worried can you be about a team that didn't even concede a single chance or didn't something around those lines? And I think it was pretty worrying. Without wanting to go full on panic mode, but this Schalke team is not good. First and foremost, like both from an individual standpoint, they don't really have they don't have a particularly talented collection of individuals, especially not when compared to the rest of the teams in the Champions League. I think they're probably the worst team in competition, and even collectively, they're not really set up as well as they were last year with Tedesco. And I haven't followed them that much this season, but they are 14th in the Bundesliga, right? And that says something. But City were not ideal. They were really impatient on the ball, and they, especially defensively, they have a lot more issues than I thought they would have at this point in time. And they're still really prone to individual errors, and you can say that to a certain extent the system makes it out to be that way to a certain extent, but you can't be this prone to individual errors. Otamendi is just uh, not that great. And obviously, they had a bit of a makeshift backline yesterday. Yesterday? Yeah.
yeah,
With Otamendi and Fernandinho and Laporte was playing left back, Walker right back, and Gundogan was playing as that DM, and it was a mess. Like as picking up on Nico, what Nico usually says, City are super reliant on Fernandinho, and they really are. And the fact that he was moved backwards yesterday was not good because that means he can't be where he usually is to swipe up counters, like basically only he does at the level that he does it. And they're really prone to individual errors. Otamendi is still Otamendi, and he's yeah. Uh,
mm.
He's not great. The thing with Otamendi that's interesting is that he was one of those guys that played here and wasn't that impressive. Like he played for Porto for like a season or a season and a half, something like that, and then he was shipped back to Brazil because he wasn't like cutting it necessarily. So I think everyone here was somewhat shocked to see him reach such a high level at Valencia and then following it up at City.
Mm.
But he's still super prone to these situations. He's not necessarily the world's smartest player. And when they don't have Laporte playing centre back, when they don't have Fernandinho as that DM, when they don't have Stones available, which he wasn't, I'm not sure if he's injured or if he's suspended. But regardless, they're really quite prone to these sort of situations. It's not great. And even on the ball, they were a bit impatient trying to break a Schalke down, even though they ended up creating a lot more chances because that like they always would. I think Pep took way too long to move Bernardo to the center. Bernardo started out wide. He started from the right with Sterling from the left, I think. And as soon as Bernardo came to the middle where he should be, because he's been arguably, well, he's definitely been one of City's like top 2 or 3 players this season. Uh, that's where he shines, and that's where he helps the team more. And I don't know, he really helps when he moved centrally. So
I guess
those are my very
my responses to
mashed
that
up
would be
takes. Yeah,
my responses to that would be obviously they tried to overcome the problem with playing Fernandinho in defence by him inverting as a centre back and dropping into the midfield. Well, not dropping, but pushing up into the midfield, I suppose, with Gundogan during the possession phases, which then meant that the City were left with a back three with Otamendi in the middle of that back three, which I think left them a little bit more open at times in transition phases going back the other way. And I think it's not that surprising in that respect that Otamendi picked up 2 yellow cards. I mean, I think the first one was, I suppose, unfortunate insofar as the ball hit his hand in the box, but the second one was very much because he was um, isolated.
himself.
Yeah, exactly. Um, the other thing I'd say is with respect to Kevin De Bruyne, I mean, his numbers weren't too bad. He did create chances, but he doesn't look quite so sharp as he did. His deliveries, even, I didn't think looked quite so crisp as they can be. And I think the free kicks that he took were not impressive. And then obviously Sane comes on and scores that peach of a free kick. Making De Bruyne look a little bit less impressive, but I did want to hear your thoughts on that idea of sort of inverting the centre back, pulling you back. I mean, obviously it's just situational 3-4-3, which I think Pep does a lot, but you don't often do it from the centre back position. You would usually do it
Yeah,
from
and
the
you definitely don't want to like when you're. I don't want to say testing out completely new things because Pep has tested pretty much everything out. But when you're sort of pushing on these types of different approaches, you definitely don't want makeshift makeshift backline to do it necessarily. And you definitely don't want players like Otamendi who are prone to these types of situations to do it. And you don't want you don't want to not have the protection of Fernandinho in the usual place that he is. And it was it was just not an ideal game to. I suppose he was kind of forced to test something like that out, but between the game that ended up being the game state and the personnel, it ended up not being ideal at all. We're having quite a lot of questions today.
We are, but there's not really been any on the City game, so I think we sort of
Yeah, but there's plenty of questions on Europa League, and everyone knows Europa League is better than Champions League, baby.
maybe
Woo!
I think we have a question. Well, we have a mention of Tedesco. Yeah, you and Dua says Tedesco love the lad, but he's not putting together a lovely attack. Um, It's interesting because obviously Schalke did quite well last season. They came second in the Bundesliga and played quite a nice form of football, and they played a similar form
But
this.
they didn't create a massive volume of chances, did they? Like I can't quite.
They created 2 penalties plus 0.07 xg or something like that.
Yeah, so like Schalke last season, Schalke were when did they were seventh in the league for XG
Mm.
for offensive XG. So that's definitely not ideal if you're coming in second. And this season when there's a change of personnel as well. Again, I haven't watched soccer much this season at all. You, there's a clear change of personnel though, and I'm not quite sure how much of the approach has changed. But if last season they were second, creating just about enough to put them over, like that's probably a sign that with attackers that are like he's playing like a bunch of like 20 year old attackers or something like that, like beyond Huth, like their offensive options, they have like Matondo, the English kid, Kutucu or Kuduku, I don't know what it's called. They're both 18. They're both been getting minutes regularly. Like the entire team is super young, especially on the offensive side. It's not great.
Yeah.
They don't really have anyone to produce to a really great level. What are you looking at?
I'm literally just putting the. I've been asked to put the names of the players that you mentioned into the chat so that people know who it is.
Oh,
Just
come on, don't
no, but
do that.
no.
Oh,
This
okay. No, I thought it was because it was a Portuguese player and you didn't understand what I meant. No,
no.
it's a legitimate player that I legitimately
Just reading
don't know
out
what. Yeah.
the
Okay,
players.
so Justin's commenting that he sent me a DM. I have your DM open. I'm gonna read it as soon as we finish this, and I'm gonna. Cause it's a long DM, and then I'm gonna answer it. Okay. Because my thought process is convoluted enough, uh, without reading something else in the middle of it. But I'll get to it in a bit as soon as
Let's move on to
done
the
conversating.
Juve Atletico game. Were you surprised at the result when you saw it?
I mean, yeah, I was because I basically I had practice yesterday and then I got home and I watched City, and then I only watched the UV highlights. I didn't watch the full game. But at the end of practice, one of my kids was saying that that Ronaldo lost 2-0, so that was pretty surprising. Um, and then watching the game, it wasn't that surprising. Like I don't know. Did you watch the full game or did you watch the highlights or?
I watched the highlights. I was on.
Lots of VAR involved yesterday, but I don't know, man. Ronaldo had a pretty good match actually. Actually, Ronaldo put up really decent numbers yesterday. I don't think Ronaldo had completed that many dribbles this season yet. I don't know how long has it been since Ronaldo completed that many dribbles in the game. Sure, 7 or something. Then he created his usual super high volume of chances.
Hmm.
Yeah, Atletico scoring from a set piece. Not great, not a great look on Allegri, but I don't really have many takes on that. Do you know why Cancelo didn't start for Juve? Asks Owen. I do not know why Cancelo didn't start for Juve. That's a good question though. Was he even on the bench? I'm pretty sure John broke, or I broke.
I have no idea either.
John, John, technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, because your image completely stopped and this whole thing stopped.
I can hear
Okay.
you. Let's just assume that we're still going. What do you think the issue with Juventus is this season?
I don't know. They're like 50. They're like 12 points ahead or something like that. Like I can't really. Like I haven't really watched them. They're not really a team that I'm going to pay an ultimate amount of attention to if they're that far ahead in the league. And then I only end up watching them in the Champions League. I didn't watch this match in particular, which is always with a very specific opponent in Atletico. Would really like Nico's help here to let me know about this game. I'm sure you'll tell us about it soon enough. But yeah, I don't know why Cancelo is on the bench to answer Owen's question. Or yeah, I know he's been great this season. He's yeah. When you have Cancelo playing as a wingback for a very dominant team, that that gets you results always. Like
Mm.
he's a very odd fullback that's now getting better and better and more complete in his skill set. But beforehand, I didn't even want him as a fullback. I think he has the skill set of an actual winger. But when you're playing at a Juventus that's so dominant in their own league, that
Mm.
having a very offensive minded fullback that is great in like 1v1s, great at underlapping, overlapping. Yeah, that gets you going, especially when you don't often even play with proper wingers, because Juventus on Cancelo's side is usually either Dybala cutting in or Bernardeschi cutting in, or I think that's about it. Cuadrado hasn't been playing, so that you can take up the whole flank. So
And Owen points out, and I read this somewhere as well. Pjanic, I think, had the flu as well, so they played him a little bit more conservatively, and they probably were a little bit worried about being overrun as well. So that may be a contributing factor for Cancelo not being played. Ewan again says Juve tried to Atletico it and basically couldn't out Atletico, which I think is true. I'd be interested on your thoughts on just the two teams in general, because obviously those two teams, if you look at them now, I mean, mostly are, but both of these teams feel as though they've been very similar for a very long time.
I don't know if they've been very similar.
Okay, well, that was my question. To what
No,
extent? I mean,
I don't think so. I think Allegri. I think Allegri is a much more versatile manager than Simeone is necessarily.
mhm,
Not to say he's better or worse. I think they're about on the same level. They're like the top three managers in the world with Pep. It's probably those two with Pep, and so it's not comparing the level necessarily, but Allegri is really great at adapting different approaches and at doing different things, and not just at Atletico wing, if that makes sense. To use your verb, and yeah, I think Ronaldo's arrival could, to a certain extent, kind of shake up that potential versatility of that Juventus side, because you end up when you have Ronaldo in the team, you end up always necessarily accommodating him, or this, the game kind of finds him to a certain extent. It's a bit like the national team issue that we have, because even if you want to play a certain way that maybe involves Ronaldo having lesser shot volume or being less integrated in build up or doing this or that he doesn't usually do, like you can't force it because it's him, and it's like it just doesn't work like that. Not necessarily because of a refusal on the behalf of the player, but because there's certain instincts and certain characteristics that you can't go against, and that if you have Ronaldo in your team, you know that he's gonna, you're gonna have a guy there that's gonna take like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 shots a game or whatever, and that's probably not gonna help you in certain defensive situations and do all of those things. So like your press is needs to be completely adapted, especially now, and more so since he's 35 or something. And or about to be 30. Is Ronaldo about to be 36? Something like that. Am I crazy? I don't
yeah,
know.
no,
He's
yeah, he
old.
is.
Yeah,
He's older
but
than
so
me, which says everything you need to know.
yeah, okay. I don't think no one could have predicted that based on the airline.
Yeah, but he's had all sorts of work done. You wouldn't even imagine.
I mean, so did you. You just don't want to tell the people.
Just went horribly wrong.
Yeah. They actually took out your hair instead of
Mm.
putting it in.
But all I meant by that comment was there should be no surprise that Atletico fielded a 4-4-2 with Griezmann and Costa up front, with Saul behind them.
I mean,
Diego Godin.
Costa was kind of surprising,
In what sense?
in the sense that he hasn't started the game since the 2nd of December, and
Mm.
he started yesterday. So it was I don't know if people were predicting Morata or if people were predicting like an even more or like Kalinic or an even more free flowing attack with like Correa or Lamar or what have you. But I don't think many people predicted Costa just because he hasn't started the game since early December. I
Yeah.
think he had an injury, and he's had a clearly regressing season, and he's clearly on a downward aging spiral, which is fairly obvious and fairly like I don't want to say excusable, but like it's natural, right? It's to be expected, and they now have Morata, and Morata was to a certain extent the guy that I was expecting to start, and he was a guy that ended up replacing Costa. It was the first sub, like around just a bit after halftime. Morata came in for Costa. Morata even scored that brilliant header that ended up being a foul on Bonucci or Chiellini or something. So I think Morata is the guy to take the spot now, and that automatically changes a bit of what you get from Costa because the off the ball work is completely different. But then the characteristics on the ball are slightly more similar, but especially off of it, they're very quite different players.
So I've got some general Champions League questions. After the round of 16, who would you say are the favourites for the competition?
Let me think about it. Give me your answer. Let me think about it. You can only say one favorite because,
You can only
like,
say one.
well, yeah, because if you're saying more than one and there's 16 teams, you get to a point where it's like,
Yeah, I think all 16 have got a. No, I don't think that. I'm going to go with PSG. I think
yeah,
simply
that
because
was gonna be my guess.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
Evan,
think they've got the depth of squad that they need to
yeah,
be able to win.
having two of the three best players in the world is nice, isn't it?
Mm,
I think it's
yeah, of
really
course.
decent.
And I think as well. I mean, Tuchel obviously is tactically astute, um,
I
and
think
has shown.
them bringing in Paredes was a really
Yeah,
important move.
yeah. I think even just seeing them play against United, and yeah, we know that there are problems in that United team. They aren't perhaps as perfect as everyone is making out that they are, but at the same time, they summarily dismissed them. They kept Pogba quiet, which is no mean feat. And I think with the players that they've got, and then Tuchel's uh, intuition. I think those between those two things, they've got the best chance. I think out of anyone. City, City, I always kind of want to see do well in the Champions League, but
Yeah, no,
for
it's probably between them and City to a certain extent. I think
yeah,
that it's basically the teams that you perhaps would have mentioned before
mm,
this round started. I think maybe some people would have said Juventus, or we could have said Juventus, but after the 2-0, I don't know if they're. I'm dying, by the way. Dying live, dying on YouTube live. Um, yeah, Juventus could have been a choice. I think you can put Tottenham as an outside candidate if you're Nathan, but I think it's between City and PSG. There's the two
yeah,
main candidates. Yeah.
yeah. Shabab Hussain's got a question. Interested to hear your thoughts about the difference between home and away. Why do you play differently depending on where you're playing? Surely tactics shouldn't change depending on location. I guess the UCL is different since away goals have greater importance, but it's common in the league to play differently depending on home or away too. I guess that's sort of UCL-ish.
I mean, environment affects players, man. We're
Mm.
Jesus Christ, I'm really dying. Environment affects players. Even me as a person that works with stats and that perhaps has a more analytic view on the game or whatever, like psychology and the social aspects and all of those things are really important. And why are you saying lol in the chat? Oh, because Matt said United makes sense. Um, yeah, but it does have an effect on the players, and especially in the Champions League, I think it's more about what you were saying about which game is first than necessarily if it's at home or away. Like in these rounds, they always the first match, regardless if you're the home team or the away team, you always come in as slightly in less emphatic fashion, if that makes any sense. I just want to use that word. I'm not even sure
No, it's
if
good.
it yeah, I thought it was great. Yeah, that's what I'm going with because I'm dying and you should give it an answer.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Tiago. I think we don't take into account how much of um, gameplay is situational, is based on the context, and
Because you can't measure it,
yeah,
which sucks. But like, doesn't mean it doesn't have a value. It just means we can't value it. Well, we can value it, but we can numerically or we can't quantify it, right?
yeah.
So that makes it tough. Because
And I think that's why people like to overlook it as well, because you can't quantify it. And so why would you talk about it when essentially all you can really say is, look, context affects things, right?
yeah,
And that's that.
but it's true, right? So
And there's all sorts of reasons why it might be true, right? In terms of, obviously you're going to feel, obviously you haven't traveled for a start, and I know obviously traveling is much better these days, but even still, the effort of getting out somewhere and playing a game and then heading back to play another game back in your own country, I think it has a, it carries its own consequences. I think playing in a different stadium, playing, obviously the crowds do affect things, even if you are at Man City. um, but I think yeah. I think we don't really talk about the home and away stuff much, because we do want to assume, as quantifiers of data, that we live in a world where all things are equal for all people in all places at all times, and
I don't think it's about wanting to assume. It's just about not being able to give it much more of an answer than it does have an effect, but we're
mm,
not sure to what extent, and like no one is sure to what extent. But we do know it matters, and it matters a lot. Uh,
yeah,
as I think that it's something that managers and people that are involved within teams should definitely value it and value it highly, as long as that doesn't take away from an analytic view on the game. So like as long as things keep complementing each other and not necessarily replacing each other, that's fine with me, right? But
yeah.
from the moment on that you're just like putting way too much emphasis on that and completely disregarding any other thing that affects game context or that is actual proper analysis, then you're going off board. If
Mm.
that makes sense.
Ewan points out that there's a Sloan paper recently quantifying that sort of pressure released. Oh, this week it was released. So
I
that's
have
quite
it faved.
interesting.
I
Yeah.
haven't read it yet, but because
Um,
I fell asleep on the buzz, I was trying to read it and I fell asleep. So that's on me. I could
mhm.
have commented on it, but I can't. I'm
You
sleep
we have,
deprived.
yeah. I think we've run out of questions. I think we've gone
No,
through
we're
everything.
Ewan
Oh,
wants to
there's a
talk
question.
about Ewan wants to talk about Europa
Europa
League,
League. Yeah,
and
no,
so do
that's
I,
where I was
because
gonna, that
that's
was
what
where I was gonna
matters.
move us. So you
Yeah,
watched Betis,
I
Ren.
w- I watched Betis Gen, and beforehand I watched Sporting away to Villarreal. So
Mhm.
that was those were both pretty
Sporting
fun.
were 1-0 up, having had no touches in the box, which I think is fairly unique.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. They're really bad this season, which is which hurts me to say after what happened last weekend. But they're really quite poor this season. They've been a bit of a mess again. But they started off like Villarreal dominated the game, dominated the first half, and Sporting scored like in the last minute with their first proper attack, just a breakaway, and then Bruno Fernandez, as you guys say.
Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah, that's how we say it. He scored again. He has about 1,000 goals from midfield this season, and he's definitely going to get picked up by like Chelsea or Liverpool or some other team like that. But I think those are the two names that are more often associated with him, and I think that's awesome. I think if Sarri were to stay, he'd be a really good candidate for that Maya Kamshik role that Sarri does really have anyone to fit into. And so even though I don't necessarily like Chelsea, uh, I think that would be like that left center mid role that Amzik used to play at Napoli. That role would fit Bruno really well. So I'd be rooting for that. But again, I don't know if Saki will be at Chelsea by the end of the season.
Mm.
And yeah, but he's been recently really linked to Liverpool, so that's going to be interesting. It's going to be. We'll see if if he ends up anywhere. Or I'm sure he's going to end up somewhere. I just don't know where, but I'm sure it'll be in the elite because he's scoring a ton of goals from the midfield again. He's doing really, really well in general, and he has a super high release flaws. So there's only like a select few teams that can approach him, I think. And then I watched Betis, which was really, really fun. They got knocked out, which is, I mean, it happens. Gen are also pretty fun. They lost 3-1 at home. They drew 3-3 in France. So that's a pretty fun draw. Did you only watch Chelsea?
I watched Chelsea. I caught the end of the Valencia game, but only the very end.
So Valencia beat Celtic, and they had beaten Celtic at Celtic Park 2-0, right?
Yeah,
And today they beat them 1-0. Okay.
well, that's right. And I have invited Mads Lockhart into the chat, so he will have watched that game. So if he does turn up, he can give us his thoughts on Valencia and Celtic. Because I know Mads is here. Hey, Mads.
That's not how you pronounce my last name, but thanks, bud.
I tried.
Lockhart.
How do you say your last name?
Well, the thing is, it's Scottish. So I don't.
We have Owen in chat. Owen is Scottish, and he'll correct you on your own name if needed.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not really qualified to say my own name. But with these things, you always have like your own pronunciations. Like there are tons of well, probably not going to mention that name, but there are tons of like French names in say the U.S., England, and they all have their own ways of pronouncing them.
Sure.
You watched the game tonight, the Valencia Celtic game.
I watched most of the second half.
Yeah, thoughts?
I mean, Celtic were a man down, right?
Yes, they were, and they could have been a man up, and I don't think it would have made a difference because that was pretty. I don't know if Celtic had the ball past midfield more than like 2 or 3 times in the second half. I will say that my large Norwegian son did well at the back, and I saw Celtic. What were they called? 90-minute cynic or whatever, like a Celtic.
Yeah, the Scottish blogger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Analytics.
Yeah. He was a fan too. Yeah, it was pretty straightforward.
I mean, Christopher Ayer. Yeah, whatever that is. He had 4 dribbles from centre back today, so that's pretty fun. Especially when I think it was Owen that before the game was saying that on Twitter that he should be taking the ball out of the back more often and be doing ball carries further up the pitch today, and I'm assuming he did either that or he completed 4 dribbles in his own third, which is kind of dangerous. But I mean,
he probably did looking at the game state, but I remember when he first broke through.
Yeah, I'm just trying to give credit to Owen, to be fair, because he's commenting.
Yeah, but like when he first broke through, I remember the big deal was like he was being compared, or he was being like mentioned in the same let's say class of center back as Frankie, who played CB at the time, as that type of new dynamic CB who brings the ball out of defense in an entirely different way than like the past generation of center backs. So it's definitely something he's been known for and something he's good at. I mean, at when he played in Norway, he played literally everywhere on the pitch. He played at center back. He played a variety of different midfield positions. He played up top. So
that's just because the standard's awful, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously. I think what I used to say about him when he was here was that he was like unspectacular at most things, but he's clearly good enough to do literally anything in this league. And he was their captain at like 16. So
I think that's kind of worrying, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. I mean, everything about the Norwegian league's worrying. let's not talk about that right after.
I mean, the fact that you actually leave there and you don't watch it just says it all, I think.
Yeah, quite a lot, if not everything.
Yeah.
I'm also just I don't watch a lot of sports. Only esports.
Okay, You're really coming off great here.
Yeah. Hello, Ewan. I closed the YouTube thing when I joined because of an echo, but I just opened it back up so I can see chat.
Yeah, that's
So,
a good idea.
what have you guys covered? I heard you.
We
talked
covered
about...
Champions League, but if you want to give us a bit of thoughts on the Champions League week, go ahead, because I really only watch the Wednesday games, and John is himself, so he kind of half-watched things.
I watched the United PSG game.
See, talk to us about that. I know that was last week.
That's what I'm saying. That's like the only CL game I watched. Like the rest, I've only like half watched, being a follower of Paracelsus. So he like tweets most of the games he watches. So you get like fucking 25 to 30 minutes worth of GIFs during a game.
Who do you think's going to win the Champions League, Matt?
Yeah, PSG are looking good for it. When I want to say when Neymar recovers, but it would be nice to make a pun about his sister or his mother, actually, given recent events.
It's been a good week for him, hasn't it? Really.
Well, I mean that depends on what you like.
It's been a good week for him. Maybe not for his agent.
Yeah.
His agent's been busy.
All PR is good PR, isn't that what they say? He's definitely more popular in certain
not
circles.
when incest is involved, I think.
No, but I mean, there are definitely circles.
Sure.
Max on here.
Putting the PR back in prison, right? Anyway, let's carry on with the Europa League.
Ewan is asking about it.
Yeah. An interesting field. Obviously, there's twice as many clubs in it at the moment compared to the Champions League, so it makes the question a little bit more broad. So maybe Tiago will allow.
Technically, now that this is over, there's only 16 teams, so there's the same amount of teams. I'm not sure. Right. Yeah, I'm an analytics guy. I know the maths.
Yeah, but you would say there's certain teams in the Champions League who you'd think are pretty much out. But let's maybe go with two teams for this one. Favorite and an outsider, or your favorite and an outsider. Go on, Tiago. Who have you got?
I think I don't want to pick the English teams because I really want them to lose because they're English. So I'm gonna go with Eintracht Frankfurt as the outsider because they're looking really good with Jovic and Haller and the Croatian guy, I forgot his name, and basically their entire team, they're having a really, really good season. And then I think I'm going to say Napoli, probably.
Overall?
Napoli and Eintracht, I think, because I don't want to pick the English teams. But there's so many teams that are like properly capable of making a run. Like Salzburg is capable of making a run. Inter is capable of making a run. The English teams are,
It's the Spanish teams that are still left, because
but they're not like Villarreal and Valencia are both having really bad seasons, so at least that.
Yeah, no, I was talking about the Sevilla and Valencia, not.
I forgot Sevilla, because they played yesterday, so they were in my match list. Yeah, that's a good shout as well.
Yeah.
Knocked out Lazio, didn't they?
I mean, yes. Sevilla is still in the tournament, which is always scary, and then you have like what a 5-time winner up top for Valencia in Gamero.
Yeah,
that's actually a fucking French name. I'm not gonna try to get.
That's the Portuguese last name, actually.
All right, but he's French, so there we go. Back to that discussion, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So who's your favorite and your?
John's just asking for tips because he doesn't know what to say.
John's gonna put some money on whatever we say.
That's right. I'm going to blame you when nothing comes off.
I don't know, man. Salzburg wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I'm just thinking what you think of them.
Yeah,
darlings.
Oh, brother, I don't watch enough to have any kinds of takes on that. But
I only read about Marco Rose. Like, it sounds really good on paper, literally on paper, because I only really read it. And that's it. And they have Munoz Dabur up top was really good. They have Samaseku who's really good. And that's it.
Like, they have a couple of Norwegians.
I dig Minamino, but he's
Yeah.
not like he's whatever.
Minamino had like the greatest game he ever had and ever
In
will
away
have.
in Norway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Theatric.
And that's like the one game I watched of them, I think. But they looked incredible. But then again, they were playing against a Norwegian team, which kind of, I don't
Was
know,
it who was
disqualifies
it?
them.
Was it Stabæk? No. Who
No,
was it?
Rosenborg, I think.
Was
Yeah.
it Rosenborg?
I think so, yeah.
I was very disappointed to see Genk go out today. They were winning like 10 minutes into the game. All looked good. They were playing Ito as their right winger, which is a Japanese player that I really, really like and that I really advocated throughout the January transfer window. And then they lost 4-1 out of nowhere against Slavia Prague. So, Prague, whatever. So I don't know what happened there. I really don't know what happened. I'm really curious to watch because they have a really solid team like from the midfield onwards. The Norwegian centre mid didn't play. Berge. He didn't play. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he's injured. He probably is.
Probably rested or injured. Yeah.
I doubt he'd be rested for this kind of game because he wasn't even on the bench.
All right, let me see.
But yeah, so that
I can just check my app. Give me a second.
So
just keep talking.
they had two of their starting midfielders, which are pretty damn decent, which is Pozuelo, who used to play for Swansea, and Malinovsky. And then they had their regular front three, and they lost. I don't know what happened. I just I don't have a comment on it because I didn't watch it, but now I want to watch it so I can then tweet about it. Yeah, because as soon as I was still watching Betty's when John was like, "You gotta come stream," so that's all I watched. Yeah.
Let's see here.
You obviously mentioned Valencia's XG underperformance this season. You've watched.
Yeah,
You've
Matt,
watched some of them.
what's up with that? What's up with that?
I mean, it's just ebbs and flows, right? The thing is, they had a good season per the league table last season, and this season they've been disastrous according to the table. Well, they're getting back up there now, but if you look at the underlying numbers, and I'm sure Ewan knows this better than I do, but the underlying numbers are basically the same. So
you expect
But
them
were
to
they overperforming too much last season?
I don't think they were overperforming as much as they are underperforming this season. No.
Because that's probably impossible.
Yeah, this is like this is an historic level of underperformance. Yeah.
Which is fitting, having an account. It's a team that you support. I think it's fitting.
Yeah, no, yeah. You do bring up some good points there.
So,
what else we got? Do we have anything else to go over?
We have a tentative tactical question from Owen that he's teased us with, but he isn't giving us about, I think, Celtic, maybe Valencia.
Yeah,
but other than that,
based on the game.
Questions. Yeah, do keep your questions coming in.
John, you're talking you're talking to 9 people. There's
true.
only so many questions that they can bring. You're aware of that, right?
Well, we can talk about questions that you have, Tiago. Do you have any questions that you would like us to discuss?
Yeah, how does one find happiness?
Well, both Mads and I are perfectly zen in that regard, so I don't know what Mads' secret is, but
Mads is doing great. Mads is doing great right now.
Have you checked between the couch cushions?
I'll try. After this, I'm gonna go out there.
I went for a walk this afternoon to a local pub and had a beer whilst doing the crossword, and I was very happy after I did that. So I don't know whether or not that would work for you, but
you're the most banal old man alive.
Yeah, you're just feeding our age jokes. This is incredible.
If you tell me this that I'm old enough times, I will in fact become old.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the only reason why you're old, and not the fact that.
Shabab is asking if you completed the crossword.
I nearly completed it, but then I had to leave, so it's currently uncompleted in my backpack.
Oh.
John makes the crosswords, so he has to complete them. Like it's not even fun for him because he creates it. So, wait.
What you got on that whiteboard? The back there,
tactics. Well,
John.
this is actually my dad's study. So,
I was gonna make a really dumb joke, but
it
then
has a message from my little sister to my dad, which says, "Still love you, my hero,"
Oh,
which is cute, isn't it?
it is
quite
cute.
cute.
And then there's a message from my
kind of
dad to
dumb.
himself, which says, "Deposit Ash."
Oh,
We've been
Ash-
trying. We've been trying.
Ash, has Ash been finally getting paid?
Yeah.
We've been trying to deposit him, but
It was actually John's dad who asked him to stick to football.
It's my dad who gives him grief every time he tweets. That means he deletes his tweets later on.
immediately. I actually do have a tactics board in my room, but you can't see because you can't see my camera. So there you go.
If Tiago turns on his camera, it
You will
becomes
all die.
horrendously. This horrendous noise comes out of it, which is indescribable in human words.
Yeah, but I can't hear it. So
Oh,
like,
yeah.
only people on the other side of the screen can hear it. So like, it's this very magical sound that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's horrible.
When I turn on my camera, must be because of my looks. The camera just goes nuts.
Probably,
We have a
yeah.
question. Another one from Shababa saying, of the UCL teams, who's got the most interesting tactics for you guys?
I'd usually say like Juventus because Allegri, but I haven't really watched them that much this season, so I don't know what they've been up to. So based on this season, let me see. Probably Tottenham, because Tottenham are always interesting. Dortmund.
That's an interesting question with Tottenham, because obviously Tottenham had their injury crisis and they changed up their
Pretty sure you can't
formation.
talk about Tottenham without Nathan here.
Yeah, that's true.
Why
I
is
wondered
not-
if you had any thoughts on that.
Do you want to guess what Nathan is doing, Mads?
Oh no, I know actually, yeah. Dungeons, Dragons, and Heroin.
Yep, in that order.
Yeah.
That's probably libelous. But yeah, no, I would be interested in your thoughts on Spurs, because obviously they moved from their 4-2-3-1 to a 4-1-2-1-2, and it seems to have been working out all right for them, despite the fact that they're pretty much overperforming quite wildly.
Yeah, they're pulling an anti-Valencia.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I don't like that term for it, bro.
Which term?
Anti-Valencia.
Yeah.
All right, then they're pulling a Man United. They're overperforming.
Yeah, that's
there you
better.
go.
Mourinho United, please.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that Sissoko is alive and doing good things is really helpful. The fact that Winks has learned how to tackle a player and how to intercept a ball is pretty helpful. So all of those things combined, it's interesting. The most interesting thing about Tottenham playing a diamond is that usually when you play a diamond, there's a lot of emphasis on your fullbacks. For obvious reasons, you don't really have anyone else occupying the wing, so the fullbacks tend to be forced into doing the entire corridor. And Tottenham fullbacks are definitely the weakest part of the team, and it's not like they're benefiting from the diamond particularly. They're kind of just there, but they're also not bothering too much. So I think that's probably the most interesting part of the Tottenham overperformance and of their diamond is how they still manage to do things while playing with pretty much 10 men if you count each fullback as like half a player.
Yeah, but when they play with the diamond, they basically have the three in the diamond when they're out of possession, playing in front of the four and sort of shuttling alongside the side. So you'll get like Christian Eriksen defending just in front of the fullback on the outside.
Yeah. I mean more on the ball than anything else, really.
Yeah. Okay.
Because off the ball they had to correct that because away to Arsenal, that's how they got screwed away to Arsenal, right? Can't remember if it was it league game or was it in the cup? It was the Eric Dyer match, the match where Eric Dyer celebrates and then Tottenham loses.
Yeah, it was in the cup, I think, wasn't it? It was in the league.
So I'm pretty sure it was in that game that Tottenham Arsenal really screwed Tottenham over in that, basically through attacking the wide players and like having a numerical advantage on the white players that Tottenham had. So
I'm
I
pretty sure
think
you
Tottenham
can.
corrected things from that moment onwards.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure you can trace the the turning point for Tottenham's fortunes from when they stopped playing Eric Dyer. I was looking at the numbers the other day, and
Don't
I
be
noticed
rude. Don't be rude. He's pretty much Portuguese.
that. All I'm saying is they stopped playing him and they started winning, and they weren't, like we said, they weren't necessarily performing much better, but they were winning.
Entirely coincidental, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean he's not. He definitely doesn't necessarily add much. He's important just in the sense that Tottenham have about 12 players, and therefore like having bodies that are alive is really really useful, and there's a much higher success to just be a footballer at Tottenham than in any other club because they need them, regardless of them being good or not. But yeah, he's definitely not cut out, especially not for their model. But I also don't know where else he'd go from here.
We have a question though that ties in with Tottenham, or it mentions Tottenham, so I can try to make that a segue.
Yeah, go for it.
Which is the bigger outlier performance? Fergie's last team, 2014-15 Leicester, this year's Spurs, or this year's Valencia? Now, statistically, I may be wrong, but I'm still always going to say that the team that were 5,000 to 1 to win the league and did it, or the biggest outlier.
Yeah, I think like it first and foremost, I think it's tough to compare like outlying over performances to underperformances. So like Valencia is kind of there in the middle of a section of teams that really overperformed their odds, and the Valencia are doing the opposite. But I think it's definitely Leicester, just in that sense. Man,
Yeah,
that season was so fun.
yeah.
Yeah,
What a great season that was.
still kind of can't believe it happened.
Yeah, like the worst part of that season is Tottenham losing the second place to Arsenal in like but at the same time that was the most expected thing to happen. Like even though I don't know.
There were so
uh,
many sort of peaks in that season, weren't there? There was, I don't know, Leicester beating City, and then Chelsea beating, getting a result against Spurs to give the title to Leicester. It was
and
such
then
a great.
Leicester playing the exact same way the entire way, like the
Yeah.
entire season. And teams not
Cracking up.
teams spending like 80% of the season trying to combat it instead of adapting to it because they were like, no, we're not gonna like drop lines to avoid the Leicester counters and all that. We're gonna beat them at their own game, and then they never would. And it was, I don't know, what a season that was. So
Yeah.
fun.
Like you say, I like sometimes think back to it and think,
Yeah,
it should
the
never happen.
Newcastle Tottenham game, as you were saying, the Newcastle Tottenham game at the end of the season. I think it was like the 4-1 for Newcastle or
Yeah,
something
Oh,
like
I
yeah,
that.
yeah,
remember
yeah.
that shit. That was
It
incredible.
was so like even as someone that like I don't know, even as someone that wants Tottenham to do well and all of those things, like it was just so hilarious. It was the most Tottenham thing in the world. David Sanson is asking for thoughts on Leverkusen going out to Krasnodar. I'm happy about it. I'm really happy about it for more ways than one. I'm happy about it because Krasnodar has looked really fun the few times I've watched them this season. I'm happy about it because Krasnodar now have Christopher Olsen, who I really like. And I'm happy about it because I dislike the Leverkusen manager. And yeah, that's it. Those are the reasons why I'm happy about it.
Was he a Scouting Thursday alumni?
Yeah, Christopher Olsen, my boy. He's now in Russia doing bit. He's gonna win the title in Russia. You know that. He started as a 10 today, I think. He didn't even put up great numbers, but who cares? They played away to Leverkusen. They barely had the ball, and that's the fun part about this because Krasnodar is usually a team that really like to have the ball, and they've become really possession heavy, and now they played away to Peter Bosz's Leverkusen, so that meant
And they've got some
having
great
like
players.
30% possession. What?
They've got like Leon Bailey. They've got
Oh, they have
Julian
Havertz, they
Brandt
have
reinvented as
Havertz,
an 8.
they have
They've got Charles
Havertz.
Aranguiz, Havertz, yeah. Yeah, some great attacking players, so it was a good result for them.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna be fun. And like This Krasnodar team is really, really young as well. The kid who scored, this 19-year-old, scored a direct free kick. Like came in, played for like 20 minutes, scored a banger, like no pressure whatsoever. So great, so great. And like even their manager is super young,
Yeah.
Oleg Fomenko. Yeah. Okay, he's not that young. He's 46. I thought he was younger. Doesn't matter. Point is, they're fun. Leverkusen are out. There you go. They have Christopher Olsen. All sorts of good things.
Petter Bosch, Juicy Sushi San says, that's a really hard name to say. The Bosch seems to be Eredivisie MLS level. Thoughts on that?
I mean, I just don't. I don't. I dislike him since the Europa League final. That's the point where I disliked him because he approached it in such a dumb way.
Yeah.
That like, do you remember when? So like the Europa League final. Oh, see, David is telling me I'm right. They do have a young manager. Okay, my bad. Doesn't matter.
35 is very young. I agree.
It is very young, but that's the manager who I was thinking about. But on WhoScored there was another name. They must like share the thingy. Point is, share the position. You know what I mean. Let's not.
I was making a sex joke. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember in the Europa League final when everyone was giving credit to Mourinho in the way that he pressed to basically kill off Ajax from the start, and then everyone nailed Mourinho as a genius, and like all that is fun in games, but like it was so simple, and Ajax never adapted to it, and they didn't have any second plan whatsoever. It was just pathetic. It was the worst final performance I've ever seen, I think. And yeah, I think I disliked him since, and then he went to Germany and he wasn't great, and now he's somehow gotten the Leverkusen job, and one of his centre backs played like 1,000 passes last week, and Jonathan Tah played like 208 passes or whatever the hell, and it was like a record. And people were like, "Oh my god, they won!" And their centre back played 1,000 passes. What a great team! Well, fuck right off. like I don't know. It's just annoying to me. I didn't watch the game. I can't tell you if Jonathan Tah made like 150 line breaking balls, but I really doubt it because I'm.
The most common combination of passes played in that game was from Ta to. Give me a second here.
Dragovic?
No, they're fullback.
Visor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mitchell Visor.
Yeah, and surprisingly, and like that's fine. It's just like I don't know, this pointless possession game. It just tickles me the wrong way.
Tiki-taka, I believe it's called, right?
No, that's not pointless. They're trying to like do the thing, and here they're not. They're trying to bore you. All right, go on.
I was just joking. Right, we have been going for over an hour now, and as all things must come to an end, so must also this live stream. It was a little bit meat and potatoes this week with technical issues, and then bringing in guests late, but I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you, Mads, for jumping in. It's been great to have you on. No doubt we'll have you on again in the future.
Sure hope not.
But I think this video, the video of this feed will be available on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, as a YouTube video.
As a video, and we'll be back next week, probably with Nathan, and maybe with other guests.
Maybe I'll get a mic. That will solve my issue.
Maybe we'll get to see Tiago in all his finery next week. But thanks again for watching. Goodbye.